facing Sammy with his Xerneas Gardevoir EX deck.
And what I really like here is he's actually using both of the Gardevoirs. He's using the one from Primal Clash with Brilliant Arrow that does a whole bunch of damage depending on how much fairy energy you've got attached to all of your Pokemon. And he's using the Mega Gardevoir from Steam Siege that does 110 damage for 2 energy, but you get to discard as many bench Pokemon as you like and do an extra 10 damage for each. Now I can tell you, Tito is the #1 player in Indonesia. Last year he finished at the very top of the Indonesian standings with a fantastically uniform 1,111 championship points.
I can imagine he played exactly as many games to make it to this number. As we can see, the game has already started, so let's jump right into it.
Now I do believe they're still just setting up here a little bit. They're having a oh no, he is started, and he is actually going through his deck there. He's doing a little bit of a deck search at the moment. I believe he's playing a dive ball. He's actually grabbing out a Froakie there, which of course you need to have. He's got 2 Froakies, and he starts Talonflame. And whenever you're playing Greninja, you always want to start Talonflame.
There you can see both players actually have found the starting Pokemon that they are looking for. On the right-hand side, Tito has started even with 2 Xerneas. That's so important because this Geomancy attack is making sure that Tito is getting as many energy into play as fast as he can. Using his N now, he's looking for at least 1 more basic Pokemon to make sure that he can use Geomancy for 2 energies in this turn.
And indeed, Geomancy does a very similar thing to Volcanion, except it's from the deck rather than the discard. 2 bench Pokemon, you get to grab a fairy energy from your deck and attach 1 to each of 2 bench Pokemon. And sometimes this Xerneas is actually fine going second, because if you go second, you attach an energy, you use Geomancy, and then right away you've got free energy on the field, turn 1, ready to go. And he's got a Gardevoir down, which is very handy indeed, because of course that means he can start building up. But the question is, he's got 2 different Mega Gardevoirs, and we don't know which one he's going to evolve until he actually goes ahead and does it.
That's very interesting. We were talking about a deck that is maybe even as slow as Greninja, and we might have found it right now. So of course Tito can change pace with the right Gardevoir, Mega Gardevoir. He can attack in the second turn already if he has the Spirit Link available to him, but Sammy will take his time here. Now he can decide to attack with Talonflame, make sure that he has some very valuable resources available to him, or he could evolve one of his Froakies into a Frogadier, attach energy to it, and make sure that he finds those free Frogadier for his bench. And he's looking for an Ultra Ball, most likely going for a Frogadier right here.
Absolutely, that is the question. Does he use Aero Blitz with the Talonflame, search out 2 cards while doing 40 damage, or does he go Water Duplicates with Frogadier, getting all of his Frogadiers onto the bench? Now, as we started the game, we saw that Sammy was doing a rather long search of his deck. So you know now, he knows if there's any Frogadiers prized, he knows which ones there are. The question is, can he set up all his Greninjas on the bench fast enough while using Aero Blitz, or does he need to use Water Duplicates in order to, you know, really speed up his setup here? And he's gone Aero Blitz. What's he searching for?
Well, that's very interesting. I don't really know. I mean, we have a nice feature coming up for you guys, and you'll see in a minute. We have price cams for you. So we've been watching our US colleagues, and we thought we can up our game. So we have price cams, so we can see that all of his Frogadiers are actually in his deck. And now with Sammy looking for his deck, I think he took Frogadier, at least 1 Frogadier, and another Ultra Ball. So that's very interesting. He chose to use the Talonflame's attack to deal some more damage and to evolve Frogadier manually, I want to say, next turn.
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't look like he's got a basic energy in his hand, as we see an N coming down from Tito here. And, of course, he would have needed an energy to use Water Duplicates. So it might have been that actually Sammy really wanted to use Water Duplicates. But as it happened, he'd put his basic energy on the Talonflame turn 1, which is always a good play. Make sure you've got an energy. Worst thing that happens is you keep the energy in hand because you don't want to play it. Your opponent plays an N, and then you don't have an energy. So it might be that Sammy there had to use Aero Blitz, and of course, as happens 90% of the time when you use that attack, you search for any 2 cards, and your opponent goes, oh, I know they've got a good hand, I'm going to end them. And that's exactly what happened.
Here we go, exactly. This is always the risk for Talonflame. It delays the search for 1 turn, and Tito knows how to counter this. So there was an N, there's an Ultra Ball. You can see all players are playing nice and shiny energy cards, so we can see exactly what kind of energy they are playing. And now the moment of truth has come. He is able to evolve his Gardevoir on the bench. He's attached the Spirit Link already. Now he's looking through his deck. And it's a Shaman.
It is a Shaman. Now, I'm going to go ahead and guess, and I could be wrong here. I'm thinking he's already got the 2 energy on there. I think he might be going for the Steam Siege Mega Gardevoir. Thing is, though, he's going to have to do 130 damage. Now, the Mega Gardevoir does 110. Plus 10 for every bench Pokemon you discard. So he's going to need to bench another Pokemon here, because he doesn't want to discard either of the ones he's already got. He's going to need to bench another Pokemon, then get the Mega Evolution, and then he can go ahead, discard the Shaman. Oh, and hopefully this will be another Shaman here to draw even more cards, and then he can discard both the Shamans. They're not sitting on his bench as easy prizes. He gets the first KO, and look at Sammy's side of the board. He can water duplicates, but then Tito's essentially going to go up by 2 prizes before Sammy even gets a chance to do any real damage.
Well, that's true, but every Greninja player has to be very, very patient, because when Greninja Break first came out, you were thinking about, this is basically a stage 3 Pokemon. How are you supposed to play a stage 3 Pokemon? Well, Frogadier makes it happen, and Talonflame makes it happen. So you'll have to be patient and make sure and know your deck well enough that you are able to deal the necessary damage late game. Especially if your opposing opponent is going to play Pokemon EX, you can still win by prizes late game, even if you go behind with 2 or even 3 prize cards.
Absolutely. Now, Tito is actually doing something very different. I was thinking he might be going Steam Siege, trying to get the first knockout here. Tito is, in fact, going a slower game. He's just used Geomancy again, and we can see there he's actually got 6 energy on the field after 2 turns, and he's even got an experience share on that Xerneas on the bench. So what I think he's doing here is just building up resources full of energy, and then he's ready to just go toe-to-toe against Greninja. Tito is showing by his play here that he's thinking, you know what? I can just knock out all of your Pokemon in a row. I don't need to go for cheap early prizes.
Yeah, Sammy is now considering, am I attaching the Bursting Balloon? Is Tito going to attack next turn? And I would assume he is. So Sammy is attaching the Bursting Balloon. If Tito would have gone for Geomancy, and he still could, the 60 damage would not be dealt to the active Xerneas. So it's always a little bit a gamble for Sammy to attach it or not. But he decides to attach it, and he uses water duplicates, and now all the Frogadiers are in play.
Absolutely, and that's a very good thing. Now, he's also got the splash energy on the Frogadier, which means if the Frogadier does get KO'd, not only does Tito take 6 damage counters onto whatever he used to take the KO, but that Froakian Frogadier goes straight back into Sammy's hands by virtue of the splash energy. And there's another experience share onto a second Xerneas there, which means that he is really setting up. If he gets a Pokemon knocked out with 2 energy on, that means he can actually here just recover both of those energies straight away, and he really is rolling. And let's not forget, he's also playing Xerneas Break here, which is another Pokemon that can do a whole bunch of damage depending on how many energy you've got on the field. Getting the energy out, recovering it is good, and I think Tito here is going to be really happy that he's and there we go. And I think Tito's going to be really happy that he is playing against a deck that is giving him the time to get that energy out.
It's really interesting to see Tito setting up here. Those 2 experience share are so valuable in this deck. Even if Sammy is going to be able to knock out a Pokemon, unless it's a ability that it's knocking it out, he is able to recover those energy because he needs those energy to scale up his damage. And now, counting those energy, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 energy out there. So Xerneas Break is doing 160 damage already. And well, if we would have Mega Gardevoir, it's 240 damage.
It's really building up very fast. And I really like Tito's approach here. This is wonderful. He's just sitting there going, right, well, if you're not going to attack, I'm not going to attack. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to evolve my Pokemon, I'm going to drag every single energy out of my deck onto my Pokemon. And here's the danger here, because Sammy is really relying on that ability of Greninja Break like we saw. So if Tito's going to go ahead and start doing stuff like playing a Hex Maniac to turn off the ability for just a couple of turns, he's going to have the Pokemon, the energy, the damage capacity to just run through Sammy's entire deck here. Now, we did see another Aero Blitz from Sammy here, so I suppose the next question is Tito just going to play an N?
Yeah, well, Tito, I was thinking about Tito considering to attack last turn, but there's no Fairy Stadium, so there was no way that Xerneas was able to retreat. So here it is, finally. That enables Xerneas to retreat for free, and I could imagine that he's going to attack this turn. But it's very curious to see which Pokemon he is going to choose to attack with. I could imagine that he's not going with the break Xerneas, as he's picking exactly that Pokemon, because it has an experience share attached to it. But he figures maybe I don't have access to a Mega Gardevoir just yet, so might as well go with the Xerneas break.
And I love the Lysander play from Tito there. Sammy had a brilliant play. He knew he was going to lose a prize this turn. He knew sooner or later Tito was going to start attacking. So he thought, right, let's leave all my 4 Frogadiers on my bench. Then maybe next turn I can start drawing into some of my Greninjas and I'm going to be okay. Tito doesn't want that to happen. Lysander comes down. But of course that means that Sammy gets to keep the 2 cards for which he searched with Aero Blitz last turn. So we know he's going to get going here. The real question is it too late for Sammy? Has he left it too late here to really start doing a lot of damage? Because he's going to need to start using multiple giant water shurikens every single turn just to keep up here. Because if we look at the HP on Tito's side of the board, we've got just big HP all around. The lowest he's got there is the Xerneas that's got 130, other than, of course, 110 HP Shaman. But I'm pretty sure right now, Tito would not mind that Shaman being KO'd. Because if Shaman gets KO'd, all the Pokemon, all the attackers, all the energy stays. Well, oh, look, and here's the prize cards for you.
Look at this nice feature right there, right? You can see now the prize cards on both players' sides. I guess with both players having searched their deck already, they pretty much have a good idea of what is in their prize card, but we can actually see it. So we have a camera underneath the table, which is a very nice feature. I would like to point out, very interesting on Tito's side, he has not evolved any Gardevoir into a Mega Gardevoir just yet. And maybe because he's afraid of the Faded Town. So many Greninja players are playing Faded Town, not only Rough Seas anymore. So he might have been afraid of the Stadium card, and he doesn't need it right now because he has Xerneas Breakout there. So very smart move on Tito's side, and Sammy's Faded Town being down now, not dealing any damage in between turns.
Absolutely, and Gardevoir is not going to be doing enough damage to KO a Greninja on its own. You know, you're doing kind of 120 damage with Luminous Blade on one of those Gardevoirs is about the most we can be doing here, and of course that's not enough to KO a Greninja. So he is going to have to start Mega Evolving at some point, but clearly he's worried about the Faded Town. And again, we've picked 2 really high quality players here. And it's subtle plays like not using Faded Town because, sorry, not using the Mega because you're worried about Faded Town. I don't need the Mega now. I can evolve it later and save myself some damage. Now, we do see Sammy finally getting some damage on the board, using Moonlight Slash there just to do 60 damage.
Yeah, and here's a Versus Seeker on Tito's side. He's going with another Lysander. He wants to avoid that Bursting Balloon. Smart move on his side also. With the Splash Energy attached to it, that Greninja would come back to the hand. Instead, he's using Greninja on the bench, and that goes straight to the discard pile using Turn Your Heads Around live stream.
Absolutely, and there we go. Now that Bursting Balloon does need to go away here. It only lasts for a single turn, Bursting Balloon. Such a powerful tool that we do not feel comfortable letting you have it for more than 1 turn. Now there's a fresh break. He's got the Splash Energy, but I'm looking here at the board, and here's what I'm thinking. Tito, he's got so much energy on the field. He's got so many attackers on the field, and he's 2 prizes up. Even if Sammy starts dropping cards like N or Ace Trainer here, Tito doesn't really need many cards. He can just sit there and attack. Whereas Sammy, he's not taken any prizes. He's got a Froakie, and he's going to have 2 Greninjas now, one of which has Break Evolved. And I just worry that Sammy's not going to be able to do enough damage here. Now, one thing which is very important, the last turn he didn't use Moonlight Slash to do 80, he used it to do 60, not put any energy back into his hand. Which means this turn he can only do 80 without the ability, which is not a KO on Xerneas Break, whereas had he returned the energy, done 80 last turn, he could get the KO, which means what he's going to have to do is use Giant Water Shuriken to do 60 to the Xerneas Break, and then attack to get a KO, which of course he can do with Shadow Stitching. What he can't do is get a double KO here. And that's what he wants. There's 80 damage on that bent Xerneas. So he could use Giant Water Shuriken to KO the bent Xerneas, then he could have used Moonlight Slash to hit the active Xerneas. But of course it's all irrelevant because it looks like he's just gone and used Aero Blitz to do 40. But he could have set up a 2-prize turn there. Had he used Moonlight Slash the previous turn to do 80, we could have seen a double knockout.
You just know that you're in a very good board position if Tito can use his Versus Seeker for Lysander turn after turn after turn. Sometimes you have to use it for an N, sometimes you have to use it for a Professor Sycamore to get access to more cards. He doesn't need that. He recovers another Lysander with Versus Seeker. He has so many things working for him. As you can see, Sammy, well, we can have a look at his deck list. He's playing 3 Max Potion. However, if Tito has so much energy attached to his Xerneas, attached to his Gardevoir, there's no way that Sammy can use those Max Potions because it's every time a one-hit KO, just like we've seen it right now.
And that's the point, and that's a big risk-reward of Max Potion. It's such a powerful card. And against something like Yveltal, for instance, it isn't one-hit KOing you, it can become one of the best cards in your deck. Against the cards that's just sitting there getting one-hit KO after one-hit KO, it just doesn't do anything. And I love your point about Lysander a minute ago, because we talked about N and how having his setup means he's essentially N-proof. Well, it also means that he can afford to use non-draw supporters like Lysander or even something like Hexmaniac later on in the game, and it's not going to bother him. And that is a big thing here.
How many Fairy Energy is Tito playing?
He's actually playing 11 Fairy Energy here.
So he's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 energy in play already. He doesn't really need to attach many more. But we've seen that there's the very first Mega Gardevoir on his bench, and actually Primal Clash one. And now, for the first time, Greninja has used his Giant Water Shuriken to knock out the active Xerneas break. And as you can see, you cannot recover a Fairy Energy with EXP share because it was an ability and not an attack that knocked Xerneas break out.
And it's a really nice way of getting around experience shares. Very nice indeed. Now, the thing is here, I've just had a look at Tito's deck list. He's not playing Hexmaniac. He's not actually able to turn off abilities. So, now this game, Tito's in an almost unassailable position here. I would be surprised if Tito didn't win this game. But if the game goes that Sammy actually gets a faster start, those Giant Water Shurikens, Tito's playing nothing to turn those off. So actually he is going to be in a brilliant position here to just hammer damage at Tito's board. And I'm not sure that he's not going to be able to overwhelm Tito here. And like you said yourself, he can actually get around experience share. And Tito's deck needs energy. If Tito's deck does not have a bunch of energy on the board, he is not going to win the game.
Well, one could say Tito's situation is as brilliant as an arrow.
You could,
That's
I suppose.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
So 6 energy still on his board. If he attacks with Brilliant Arrow next turn, it's still enough to knock out the active Greninja break. So the math really coming through for Tito here.
It really is, and it's just, it seems at this stage like an inevitability for Tito here. He's got so much energy, and how is Sammy going to deal 210 damage this turn? I mean, the short answer is he's not. He can do 140. And then he's going to lose his Greninja break. And now there's a Frogadier in play, but you cannot evolve twice in one turn, which means next turn Sammy's going to be sitting there with a Greninja, and it's just, there's too much on Tito's side of the board. Not only is he winning the prize race here, but he's winning the board position race. Although I think at this stage what Tito's going to really want to do is maybe evolve a bench. There we go. Retreat into that, because he can take 6 damage counters on that one and he might be okay.
But does he find another Fairy Energy? I'm not sure, because there was an Ace Trainer last turn from Sammy, so smart move. He's limited to 4 cards now, Tito, but he managed to find another Fairy Energy, which is very important. Interesting here, he attaches to the active Mega Gardevoir, so he's going to go with this one, but he can avoid another Bursting Balloon by Lysander, and going down to 2 prize cards now. The good thing for Sammy, though, is there's still a Greninja in play.
But he's not going to be doing enough damage here. Like we said, 80 for Moonlight Slash, 60 for Giant Water Shuriken, 60 on the active, adds up to 200. Tito knows this. Mega Gardevoir has 210 HP. I thought he was going to retreat to avoid the Bursting Balloon so that he couldn't be one-hit KO'd, or at least couldn't be KO'd next turn. Whereas instead, he used Lysander to avoid the Bursting Balloon, so it made no difference whether he retreated or not. So I really like that play from Tito there, and I don't think this N is really going to do very much. Sammy is not getting a KO this turn, which means Tito is getting a KO next turn, which means he's going down to 1 prize remaining, and look at his side of the board.
Oh, there's nothing left for him. I mean, at this stage and at this pace, there's no way that Sammy can evolve into a Greninja break that has access to 170 HP within 2 turns. So whatever Tito is going to be facing in the turn after the next one, he's going to be able to one-hit KO it, and as long as he finds another Fairy Energy, and I think he is going to manage to find just that.
I agree. Now, there was one thing in play which I didn't mention a second ago, and that's Faded Town. Because, of course, Giant Water Shuriken plus Moonlight Slash plus 60 equals 200. And then Faded Town putting 20 by the stadium onto Mega Gardevoir actually would have got a KO there. But it's completely irrelevant anyway. Sammy played the end, didn't hit the Faded Town, and that means that there's no way of getting a KO. And if I'm Sammy here, I'm thinking it's 50 minutes best of 3. So I need to try and win this game. I don't want to be in a position where I lose a long game 1, win game 2, and then we end up drawing. So if I'm Sammy here, I'm seriously thinking about conceding this game, going to game 2 and trying to have, because we've said ourselves, these are 2 slow decks. I don't know if we're going to get 3 full games. I don't think Sammy's winning this game. So if I'm Sammy, I'm thinking, you know what, it might be time to just quit and go to game 2.
Yeah, Sammy is probably not going to be the one that is going to win game 3 immediately, just because it's Greninja. So it takes 3 to 4 turns to even deal some damage. So he's not going to be a favorite if it's going to be in a best of 3 situation. So that might be an option for him, maybe conceding this one. But of course, no one wants to concede if they're on stream, maybe even on the stream for the very first time. And it's a European Championship, so giving up here, conceding here is a very, very tough decision.
Well, indeed, and let's not forget, of course, that the pressure here is on. Because, you know, we've got 2 chaps here. They've both come a very long way. They're competing in a very big tournament. They're on stream, round 1. There is a lot of pressure on these chaps here. We are making it very difficult for them, quite frankly. So, you know, you've got to have a bit of sympathy for the players being put in such a pressured situation. But I really don't see Sammy winning this game here, unfortunately.
Well, good news, bad news for Sammy. He used again his Talonflame to attack. There was another end, but he now drew into Faded Town. So he has it in hand. He's most likely going to slap it down very soon and can deal and pile up some damage on the Mega Pokemon on Tito's side. And there it is.
Yes, and he will be getting a KO here. He will be able to, you know, get the KO. He's on 160, only needs to do an extra 50 damage, or actually, I suppose, even 30 damage. So he could get the KO with Shadow Stitching here. Shadow Stitching would put Mega Gardevoir on 200, and then the KO would come from Faded Town, and then he would be able to turn off abilities as well, but it looks like that's not what he's chosen to do here.
Well, that's interesting, because now he has enough energy to deal the one-hit KO. If he finds one more Fairy Energy, that would put Mega Gardevoir to 3 energy cards, 6 in total. That makes 180 damage, and Greninja Break would be knocked out, and Tito would draw his last prize card.
He would indeed, but of course...
It's Skylar.
And
there we go.
Mega Turbo. Grab a basic energy from your discard pile attached to one of your Mega Pokemon, and he discarded 2 Fairy Energy right early, and it might even have been turn 1, in fact. And I'm like, what's he doing? What's he doing? How's it coming back? And then right the very last turn, Mega Turbo for the win.
Mega Turbo for the win. And don't forget about Skylar. Skylar was looking for the Mega Turbo item. We've not seen this throughout the game. And now it comes even after, and then he finds it, and he's able to recover that last energy that puts him into a situation where he has 6 Fairy Energy on board, 180 damage. Greninja Break is knocked out.
Greninja Break is knocked out, absolutely. Now, here's the thing. This game, it's going to be slow. We know it's going to be slow. Tito here is in a brilliant position because he's won game 1, and there's a good chance game 2 might not even finish. Now, this goes down to 2 things. Either Tito is going to get enough energy on the board that he's going to do what he just did. But we've already spoken about the fact that there are no Hex Maniac or anything of that nature, no way to turn off abilities for Tito. So if Sammy gets a quick setup and starts being able to use a double Water Shuriken, that is going to be very, very bad very, very quickly, because that damage will build up. And I know that Tito's got high HP Pokemon all over the place here, but it is going to be a challenge. Unless, of course, he can just do what he just did.
Well, there's a very interesting choice in Sammy's deck list, and that is 3 Max Potion. Unfortunately, in this matchup, we didn't see it shine. Can you maybe imagine some matchup where it actually really, really comes in handy to have those 3 Max Potions for Greninja?
I mean, there's a bunch. I mean, Yveltal really springs to mind here, because if Yveltal EX, we saw his Evil Ball attack, 20 damage plus 20 for each energy attached to both active. Well, Greninja can use that Moonlight Slash attack to actually take the energy back into his hand and have 0 energy attached to him, making a one-hit KO with Evil Ball very, very, very difficult indeed. So I mean, that would be the one that really, and we said, you've got to either play Yveltal or beat it, and you know what? I think that's his tech. Now, the other tech, and it's another sad tech in this matchup, he's playing 2 Enhanced Hammer, which against things like Yveltal playing 4 double colourless would be really good. Against a deck playing 11 basic energy, all of those cards do nothing in this matchup. So Sammy gets to go first here as he lost game 1. He again starts with the Talonflame 2 games in a row, which is very nice. He uses, it looks like he started at least 3 Talonflame there.
Oh boy.
He gets a Froakie turn 1, and that's all he really needs here. Now, is he going to put the basic energy on the Froakie or the Talonflame, given what happened last game, not having the energy for the Water Dupe? Oh, he chooses not to put it down at all. Now that's interesting, because I don't think Tito can get a KO turn 1. This is not a turn 1 KO kind of deck, so I don't think Tito could Lysander KO a Froakie. So I think putting an energy on the Froakie was safe, and if Tito plays an N here, and Sammy doesn't have an energy next turn, he is going to regret doing that.
He could even choose to attach it to the Talonflame, because as long as he has basic water energy, he can attach it to the Talonflame if he wants to use that. He cannot do that with splash energy. So an N is really, really a factor that Sammy has to calculate here. But I'm sure he has something in mind with not attaching the energy. What Tito wants to do is somehow he wants to be able to retreat that Gardevoir EX and make sure that Xerneas is able to use its Geomancy. So my question is Tito actually playing any Max Elixir that would enable him to give him access to 2 energy the first turn and use Geomancy?
He's not. The other card I was looking for here was an energy switch to maybe attach to the Gardevoir, retreat with Fairy Guard, and then energy switch it over. Unfortunately, that is another thing he's not playing, so I don't believe there's anything he can really do here, which means he's going to be stuck using Life Leap. Oh no, just retreating. And I like the retreating. Although, again, I don't think Sammy's going to be doing much damage here. Maybe 40 with Aero Blitz. Although, we saw last game... Oh no, Sammy is choosing to use Aero Blitz here. So, here again, maybe he could have gone for the Frogadier. Depends what's in his hand. Oh no, there's nothing in his hand.
Well, there's really nothing in his hand.
I can't see that one next to the Bursting Bloom, but if it was supporter, you'd think he was playing it. So again, and that's why he didn't attach the energy to the Froakie. He was worried that if he attached the energy to the Froakie and didn't draw into a Frogadier, then he'd have energy on a Froakie, but no Frogadier, and a Talonflame active with no energy. Sammy is not having the luck on turn 1 in this game.
No, he really doesn't, and he would need that, especially now. Tito maybe has also not the best turn 1, because best turn 1 when he's going second is Geomancy. He wasn't able to do that, so both players are kind of behind 1 turn, so it kind of equals. It's kind of equal. Now he's using Ultra Ball, maybe giving me access to another Shaman EX, maybe another bench Pokemon. Most important part for him is that he finds a Fairy energy, and maybe he doesn't have that in his hand right now. So he needs access to a Shaman to make sure that he can use Geomancy this turn.
And we do see the Skylar going into the discard using the Ultra Ball, of course, versus Seeker for Skylar for Mega Turbo, maybe. Something we could see later on in this game.
Well, he has 3 cards in hand, so 3 more chances to give him access to a Fairy energy.
I think he hit it with the first card there. Yes, he did. So now he can use that Geomancy, get 2 more energy on the field, and there's an N.
Well, Sammy kind of likes this N because his hand was very bad to begin with. So 2 more cards from Talonflame, but now 6 fresh cards. Maybe he likes this even better.
Yeah, maybe he does. And I mean, it's a little bit annoying. I've played decks with Talonflame in before, and I'm not even kidding when I say that 90% of the time I use Aero Blitz, my opponent immediately drops down an N. And then it's just a gamble. What deck is he going to draw? What's he going to... Oh, he's got a Sycamore. So he's not, it's not a bad hand here. He's got something to do next turn, but no Greninja, no Frogadier it looks like here.
Yeah, he can slap down that Faded Town, he can attach a Water Energy and then use Professor Sycamore, and then hoping that he gets access to a Frogadier because he really needs it this turn.
But we know from last game, Tito is a very careful player, a very thoughtful player. I don't think we're going to see any Mega Evolutions here until we absolutely have to. And once again here, Geomancy, why not? Let's go for the Geomancy.
The board setup on Tito's side is just amazing, except for that Shaman EX. He maybe doesn't want this to be on his bench, but it doesn't really matter because Sammy is going to be very busy knocking out Fairy Pokemon for the time being. This looks just amazing for Tito, and he can use Geomancy for a turn or 2 now.
Yeah, and as we saw, all he needs to do, get that energy out, get those attackers, and he feels comfortable even without Hex Maniac turning off the giant water shuriken. Tito feels comfortable going toe-to-toe with this Greninja deck. I'm going to be taking a knockout every turn. My Pokemon are too high HP for you to really keep up with, and my recovery is so much easier with yours.
Can you imagine this is the very first time we see water duplicates here? And lucky enough for Sammy, he finds all those Frogadiers because none of them is priced. He has access to all of them. I think he did not discard them. Yeah, it was a little bit worrying that it was at the very end. But here we go. Here we go. Free Frogadier, one Talonflame, one Froakie. That's all he needs now. That's the setup he wanted to have 2 turns ago, but now he has it.
And one thing I love here, he's got Splash Energy on his active Frogadier, and he's got a Froakie on the bench. So if Tito does get a KO here without a Lysander, that means he's going to be able to KO the Frogadier, but then Sammy straight away benches another Froakie, evolves a Froakie into Frogadier, and that's going to help Sammy set up to no end here. But of course, he's still, next turn, he's not getting a break. There's no Wally in his deck. He's got to evolve up in the usual manner, which means he's at least 2 turns away from having a giant water shuriken, which means Tito can just do another 2 Geomancies and just pile that energy up. And the game is going like last game. And if you're Sammy here, you've got to be sitting here thinking, what can I do differently? This can't go like it did last game, because last game Tito had a fairly straightforward win as soon as he got all his energy on the field.
Yeah, Tito has not found his experience share yet, so maybe if Sammy is fast enough now to pick up some knockouts, he can make sure that Tito is running out of energy, because now he's piling up energy with Geomancy. I can imagine that this is his last turn of Geomancy, because now calculating there's 6 Fairy Energy in play. That's enough for a knockout with Mega Gardevoir on any Pokemon that Sammy can throw at him. Not quite enough for Xerneas Break though, so really curious to see if Tito decides to go with another Geomancy next turn, or if he's going to attack, as I would imagine.
I think he could quite. I mean, again, one thing we're going to be looking for here is that Fairy Garden. He's only playing 1 Xerneas Break, so he's already got that on the bench. He's not going to be able to evolve the active, so he is going to need to retreat to attack here. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck using Geomancy again.
Yeah, he's playing free Fairy Garden, so he needs to find that, and he needs another energy for his Xerneas Break if he decides to attack with this one, and he needs another Fairy Energy anyway to make sure that it's a one-hit KO on a Greninja or on this Talonflame that becomes active right now.
And I like this play from Sammy. He did this last game. Now, he was thwarted by Lysander last game, but I like this play from Sammy here again. What he's doing is he's got all of his frogs on his bench. He's putting a sacrificial Talonflame into the active. He can let Tito have the... Oh, and now this is a wonderful play here, because now not only does Tito need the Fairy Garden, he also needs an energy onto the Shaman. So I really, really like this. If Sammy can get, 3 Greninjas and 2 breaks on the bench, that's what gives him a shot at winning this game. And the Lysander, combined with a Bursting Balloon, combined with the active Talonflame, combined with everything he's got on the bench, you cannot accuse Sammy here of not trying his absolute best to buy a turn or 2 to set up. He is doing everything right here.
It's very interesting. So looking at Tito's list, there's nothing to retreat. Nothing. There's no Switch, there's no Olympia.
Only Fairy Garden.
You need that Fairy Garden, the energy. He really is bound to now use his, and he has to find, in the 6 cards, he needs to find a Fairy Energy. That's this only out to make sure that Shaman retreats.
But of course, if he finds the energy without the Fairy Garden, he can still retreat, but we're talking manual retreat, which means he's losing an energy, and Tito's deck relies on keeping the energy on the field. So, and you've said it, he needs more energy to get these one-hit KOs, and he's not going to do it. And I mean, both players here are playing very, very well. And, you've got to have a bit of sympathy for Sammy here. What happened last game with all those multiple Lysanders, he is trying everything just to buy a cup, and I think he's done it here. Tito retreats, and he's just doing it's going to have to be a Geomancy here. And I think Sammy might finally have got the time he needs.
Yeah, this is one more turn that he bought together with Bursting Balloon and Lysander, making sure that Tito is bound to use another Geomancy. And now, if everything goes right for Sammy, he can evolve a couple of Frogadier. Maybe he has access to a Greninja Break and start piling up that damage, because still, on Tito's side, there's no experience share out there.
No, now, I'm looking at the clock here. and I'm seeing there's 17 minutes plus 3 turns remaining, and I'm thinking Sammy's playing for a draw here. He's playing to win game 2, run out of time and have a draw. Tito here is playing, you know, if this game doesn't finish, Tito wins the match. If Tito wins this game, he wins the match. Sammy, I don't think his deck, even if Tito has a slow start, so Sammy needs to win this game to get the draw, and this is what happens when you play slow decks. 9 Swiss rounds on day 1. And having a few draws is going to hurt your standings, and that's a position that at least Sammy finds himself in here. I think he's accepting a draw at the most, but of course, right now, I think Sammy would be happy with a draw. He needs to get more Greninjas, more breaks. Because even if he gets the break here, let's say he break evolves, and it looks like he's going to, he can only have 1 break, which means he has 1 break, and we know Tito's getting a KO next turn. So then Sammy has 1 break, and Tito gets a KO next turn. And Sammy's deck is at its best when he's doing 2 giant water shurikens per turn, and he just does not seem to be getting a fast enough setup to ever allow that double giant water shuriken, and I think that really hurts his chances when playing against a deck with such large Pokemon as Tito's, though he does have the bursting balloon, which might have the same effect.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see now. The first giant water shuriken goes on Xerneas Break, so he anticipates that Xerneas Break might become active sometime soon. There's also Bursting Balloon protecting Greninja Break just a little bit. And now he's most likely going... Yeah, he's going to... Oh, he leaves the Splash Energy on, so it's a 100 damage. Well, it makes sense, I guess, because he used the giant water shuriken on the bench Xerneas Break. I could have imagined that he's going for the knockout on Xerneas, on the active Xerneas, just to make sure that the energy is not going to be recovered, but he decides not to pick up the KO here.
I think this is a wonderful play from Sammy. I see what he's doing here. He's saying, if you can't get your Pokemon in the active, you can't KO my Greninja Break, and I get another turn to evolve. That Xerneas has a retreat cost of 2, and there's no Fairy Garden on the field. I think Sammy is crossing his fingers that Tito can't retreat, is forced to do a Geomancy or worse still, just pass. Then next turn, Sammy can get the KO on the Xerneas with Giant Water Shuriken, which won't activate Experience Share, and then he's gained himself another turn, and then he can have the 2 Greninjas. I think this is a beautiful play from Sammy here, because I think Sammy is trying to strand that Xerneas in the active and buy himself an extra turn, and I love it.
Yeah, what Sammy probably doesn't know is that Tito's only playing 1 Xerneas Break. So there's a chance that, at least in Sammy's mind, that Tito is evolving the active Xerneas into a Xerneas Break, attach another energy and attack. And even if he did without a Lysander, that Xerneas Break would go down. 2 Fairy Energy would go into the discard pile because of the Bursting Balloon.
And I think that's what Sammy's relying on here. Although that last game was quite long, Tito went through most of his deck. These top players pay attention. I think Sammy noticed that there was only 1 Xerneas Break, and I think he noticed that there were, you know, multiple Gardevoirs and Megas. I think Sammy might have guessed there's only 1 Xerneas here, or 1 of the breaks. I could be wrong, but this is the kind of thing that top players notice during long games.
It's very interesting now to see that the Fairy Energy goes to the benched Gardevoir EX. It doesn't look like he has access to the Fairy Garden because he would have slapped it down immediately. Here we go. It's Geomancy, as you said.
It worked, and that was that was a risky play from Sammy, because it could have just been Fairy Garden retreat, and then he's not got the KO. But I love this. Now, if Sammy gets a second break here, then he's getting 2 KOs this turn. He's going up by 2 prizes, and he's got 2 of his breaks out. Although, having said that, he's got a break prized, and I believe he had to discard a break early on in the game. Is he playing free like a lot of decks are? He's not got another break. He has discarded 1 early game. He's got 1 in the prizes. He hasn't got access, and that's so disappointing for Sammy here. He's finally got an opportunity to get 2 breaks, and it's not happening. Unless he can hit a Super Rod. But even now, he's just played a Fisherman as his supporter for the turn. So even if he plays a Super Rod, he's not going to be drawing any cards. Oh, that's so disappointing for Sammy.
Yeah, if he knocks out the active Xerneas now, if he decides to attack, there's going to be attack from Tito. That is most likely going to be enough.
Now he's got to draw it off the prizes, and he does! He gets the break from the prizes! That means he can go and evolve. Oh, that is absolutely clutch there. That is wonderful. He's got the break, and now... And he used a Fisherman. He's got 2 water energy in hand. He can retreat, Giant Water Shuriken, attach, and then attack. Sammy might be moving into control of this game here.
Well, you just can't imagine how lucky this prize card was, because the other prize card that is also prized is Super Rod. So he did not have access to Super Rod. He would not have access to another Greninja break. He had to pick up this prize card or Super Rod to keep attacking, to keep using Giant Water Shuriken, and he, luckily for him, drew it.
And there's the splash energy, meaning he can recover right away. If it gets KO'd, it goes straight back into his hand. Now, is he just going to go for the Xerneas break in the active here? I've got to imagine he probably does, because he just needs a KO. What he could do here was do 60 with Giant Water Shuriken and then get the KO with Shadow Stitching. Oh no, he's choosing to spread the damage around, so he's choosing not to take the KO here. And he's hoping that the Xerneas break attacks into the bursting balloon and gets KO'd that way. But we've seen Tito is a man who likes to use Lysander to get KOs. So risky play here from Sammy. He could have taken those 2 energy off the field, or one of them, because one would go down with the experience share. He could have taken the KO. He chose not to. Does Tito have a Lysander? Because if Tito doesn't, Sammy's getting a prize, and then it's going into his turn.
Here we go. Versus Seeker. You can imagine what he's looking for. Well, first of all, let's count these fairy energy quickly, because if they are not enough, he might not be able to afford using a Lysander, but
We've got 7 in total here. He's got 7 fairy energy out, which means that he's not actually doing enough with Xerneas break.
And we
he's got 8, sorry. Yeah, he's got 8 energy on the field here.
But that's not enough either.
Still not enough. It's still only 160. Yeah, there are 8. So he's doing 160. So...
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Is he going for it? Because now we could see a max potion for the first time this match. Lysander. No, he goes Frogadier.
And that's got to be the play. And that's upsetting for Tito. Tito does not want to KO the Frogadier. Now, the Frogadier might become a Greninja break later, but you know what? The Greninja break is a Greninja break now. That's what Tito wants to get rid of. And Sammy here... And he knows how close that was. He knows how close he was to getting KO'd. Even something like a Fairy Garden here could have allowed a retreat into the Mega Gardevoir, which I believe would have done enough damage to KO the break, but it's all irrelevant because it didn't. Now I'm imagining we're going to see a KO with Giant Water Shuriken, which means that EXP share does not go in and those 2 energy get gone, and then Sammy's got another Giant Water Shuriken and an attack open to him. And this is what I've been talking about all game. This is Sammy's path to victory, and it's working.
It's a very interesting situation just now. Tito decided to evolve his Gardevoir EX into Mega Gardevoir, dealing now 20 damage in between turns with Faded Town. He was frowning when he did it. He felt like he had to. Maybe he was afraid of an N or so losing access to Mega Gardevoir. I'm not sure exactly. But that means that in addition to all the Giant Water Shuriken shenanigans from Sammy, like this one, Mega Gardevoir is really getting a lot of damage right now.
And I'm looking at his list here. Sammy is one of these Greninja decks that does play Lysander. Now, has he got Lysander in the discard pile? This would be a big play. But I like this. He's gone Fisherman. You know what? He's finally got those 2 breaks. So what he needs to do is he needs a handful of energy to just use the ability over and over again, and Fisherman gives him that handful of energy. But Sammy does play a single Lysander, which is unusual for Greninja decks, and I like Sammy in this game here. I think Sammy's got the advantage. Because what's Tito going to do? I mean, maybe Tito gets the KO with the Mega Gardevoir, but then the Mega Gardevoir goes down. Sammy's got 2 prizes remaining, and Tito's board is, to put it very politely, barren.
Well, it's really, you can see how the current board situation is by looking at what kind of card the players are recovering with versus Seeker. Last turn, Sammy was recovering a lot of Ns. He was recovering a lot of draw engine cards. Now he is actually able to use them for the Fisherman because his board position is great already. He can use it to put more pressure on Tito, as was Tito last turn. Last game, he was using it for Lysanders to improve his position. He didn't need those Professor Sycamores. He didn't need any N because he was in the great position. So now the tables have turned. Sammy is in a great position. I like him through this second game here.
That's always very disconcerting when you're sitting opposite your opponent, and your opponent has the luxury of playing non-draw supporters turn after turn after turn. And it's just disappointing because you know their setup is so good that all they're doing is using these powerful supporters to kind of, you know, make their position even better. It's a little bit disappointing. Now we do see, I believe, a Shaman coming down from Tito here, drawing some cards. But Tito's in a very uncomfortable position here. He can try and get a KO, and I suppose he has to, but look at that, Mega Gardevoir on the bench. It's already at 160 damage, which means Giant Water Shuriken KO.
Yeah, there's Faded Town is gone. Fortunately for Tito, now he has Fairy Garden and he can retreat the active Xerneas. It has Experience Share attached to it, but another Giant Water Shuriken would knock it out as well without being able to recover the Fairy Energy. So very, very tough situation for Tito. He's struggling to keep enough Fairy Energy in play to make sure that he's actually able to one-hit KO a Greninja break. Right now, he's still, well, we have 6 energy in play, so Mega Gardevoir would one-hit KO the active one, but he can't use Lysander. That would mean that the active Greninja break would get back to Sammy's hand and he can recover it within 2 turns.
Absolutely, he could. And I mean, the thing, and we got very opposite decks here. Sammy is, I'm going to attach 1 energy and attack. Whereas Tito, absolute minimum 2 energy, but of course, the only real Pokemon that has 2 energy that does a decent amount of damage is the Steam Siege Mega Gardevoir, and that was very well timed from Tito there, who does 110 for 2 energy, plus 10 more for each Pokemon you discard. Oh, now here's a risky play. Could he attack with... Yes, and he might even discard the Mega Gardevoir on the bench, which is heartbreaking, getting rid of those free energy.
Look at his face. He doesn't like it, but I think he knows he has to do it.
If he doesn't do it, I mean, here's the thing. I think he's got to do it, because Sammy is going to Giant Water Shuriken next turn. It is going to happen. He's taking...
3. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Oh, he's still struggling. He's looking into the crowd. Am I doing the right situation?
This is heartbreaking.
Oh, look at this.
But he had to, because if he didn't do that, Sammy was just going to use a Giant Water Shuriken to KO it anyway. Oh, does Sammy have a max potion? Sammy's been waiting for this for the last 45 minutes. Does he have a max potion? It's going to be upsetting if he doesn't.
Well, before the end, he had 2 in hand even. Oh, no, there it is.
He does!
Boom!
Oh, that must feel so good for Sammy right
Tito.
here.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And I think Tito knows that's basically the game there. Tito knows that, well, actually, here's the thing. Sammy's still got 4 prizes remaining. So, I mean, I'm going to put it out there. I don't see Tito winning this game. I don't think Tito can win this game. I don't think he can get enough energy on the board. But there's only 4.5 minutes plus 3 turns remaining. So if he can just not lose this game, uncompleted games do not count. And that means that Tito will win the match with a score of 1-0. Now, we don't, the players aren't sitting there looking at the clock. Tito's not going to be slow playing or anything like that. But you know it's going to come into the mind of both players here. Sammy knows he's got to win quickly. When you play a lot of tournaments, you get a bit of a feeling, and you know when a 50-minute game is ending, you know it's ending.
Yeah, Tito's inner clock knows that there's maybe 5 minutes left, and we can see exactly how much time there is. So that is Tito's winning condition for this game, for this match. And if he can't manage to survive this game, this is going to end up in a draw.
It will. Now, has he got a basic... Yes, he has. Now, I was wondering whether he was going to KO the bench Xerneas, but unfortunately not. He's gone for the damage. And now this isn't going to do quite enough. A Faded Town here would be beautiful, but instead he just does 60. 180 though, that's not too bad. A Faded Town, he could have got the KO, but he didn't have the Faded Town. It's a moot point, but he likes this Mega Gardevoir. Sammy loves this Mega Gardevoir because it's not doing 170 damage.
Now Sammy knows he has to knock out the active Mega Gardevoir right now. He can't spend his Giant Water Shuriken on anything on the bench just because he knows that it's going to be discarded very soon. So he has to get rid of Mega Gardevoir so that Tito does not have the luxury of getting rid of damaged Pokemon on the bench anymore. So he's using Professor Sycamore. He has a fresh Mega Gardevoir on the bench.
He needs a Mega Turbo.
2.5 minutes left.
He needs that Mega Turbo.
He has Fairy Energy, Fairy Garden in play. Let's see. Oh, Xerneas break, giving him a little bit more breathing room. It has 150 HP, so it can live another Giant Water Shuriken.
He got the Mega Turbo, which means he's now got the free energy on the bench Mega Gardevoir, which means he can use Brilliant Arrow. And he's doing 180. That is 6 damage, 6 times 30, 180. He will be getting the KO here. Tito is... he is going close to the line here.
I did not see that coming. That's just amazing. So out of that N... No, Professor Sycamore was. But there's, I think, only 2 more cards in his deck. Is that right?
That's what it looks like from our vantage point here. But I think Tito knows that he's going to have to play something like a Super Rod to put cards back into his deck. Otherwise, he is going to deck out and lose the game, even in the +3 turns. But then again, if you're a good player like Tito, you do not put yourself in this position unless you know you've got something like a Super Rod in hand.
Sammy is in a hurry here. He discarded actually his Greninja stack, but he can recover with Splash Energy, and the table judges luckily notice him of that. So he got a whole hand now with lots of Greninjas, but he has not enough time now to evolve all of this, to make use of it. He really has to hurry up, because if time is called, there was only 3 turns left.
But you can see the urgency with which he's playing here. It's an uncomfortable feeling when you're in a situation like this. You know you can't lose this game. You know you have to go as fast as you possibly can. But by a similar token, you know you've got to play carefully and not make any silly mistakes. So you can see here he's flicking through his discard pile furiously, trying to figure out what to do. I don't think he's going to have the time to pull it off, unfortunately. Although there are 2 Megas out, if he can KO both those Megas, there is a chance. Now, is this going to be a Fisherman, maybe? Get some energy for Giant Water Shuriken?
The math is pretty easy now. Now, with 30 seconds left on the clock, he has to knock out 2 Mega Pokemon, 2 Pokemon EX, because the Xerneas Break is only giving him access to 1 prize card. He has 4 left. He has to draw all of them within overtime. So he will probably have this turn and 2 more turns to be able to knock out 2 Pokemon EX. If he can't manage that, he's going to lose the whole match.
I don't think he's going to have, Now, unfortunately here,
and it's even
the time
already.
has just been called, so that means that Sammy's only got 1 more turn. Now, that he could still win, because he can use a Giant Water Shuriken to KO the benched Mega Gardevoir, which is currently on 180, putting him down to 2 prizes. And then the question is, can he KO the active, given, of course, that... And there we go. Now, here's the thing. There's 4 energy on Tito's side of the board, and he needs 6 to get the 1-hit KO. Sammy could salvage this on the very last turn of the game.
Let's do the math here. What does it take?
Well, if he uses... Now, he's not got a second Giant Water Shuriken, so he can do a maximum of 80 here, putting Gardevoir on 130 HP remaining, which is fine, because if he gets some Mega and 2 energy next turn, Giant Water Shuriken plus Moonlight Slash is the KO. So he's in a good position here. All he needs to do is Moonlight Slash, and then next turn he needs to break and 2 energy to do another Giant Water Shuriken, another Moonlight Slash, and on his very last turn of the game, he will actually win this second game, giving us a draw overall.
Yeah, and Tito is looking at the options here. He knows it's going to be his last turn now. What can he actually do to avoid this from happening? The math is in Sammy's favor now. He's doing exactly what you just said. It's 80 damage on the Mega Gardevoir EX.
But did you notice what he did there? He had a Splash Energy and a basic on the on the Greninja Break, because now he's got the water in hand. Tito has to end him, because here's the thing, he's not getting a 1-hit KO without an energy Mega Turbo. That's what he needs. It's the only way he gets 6 energy out this turn is energy Mega Turbo. If he doesn't do that, Sammy's got the Greninja Break, he's got the energy in hand. Sammy is guaranteed a knockout next turn unless Tito does one of a few things. Energy and Mega Turbo to get the KO.
He could also retreat.
That was going to be my very next point. I think that's what he's going to do. Force Sammy to have a Lysander, but we know Sammy plays Lysander.
Well, an N would be huge for Tito. We have seen matches being decided with an N so often. And Tito is now thinking about retreating Mega Gardevoir, but not deciding to do this just now. He's benching another Gardevoir EX. What to promote? What to promote? Well, he's talking to the judges. Maybe he has announced retreat already. In that case, he would have to retreat it.
Well, he's going to have to retreat it anyway, unfortunately.
Well, eventually he has to retreat it, because otherwise he loses the game, or he... Well, does he have access to an N? We were not able to see exactly what kind of cards he has in hand, or he just has to pass.
So it's Lysander. It's literally, and like so many games we've seen, if he's got the Lysander, he's got the victory. It's a versus seeker because you have it in a discard. I think he does have it in the discard because he used it earlier in the game
There
to
it
buy some
is.
time. And then he can use a giant water shuriken using water energy from his hand, Moonlight Slash for 80 damage, getting the KO, and on his very last turn, he ties the game up at 1 apiece. So now we've got 140 on the Mega Gardevoir, Moonlight Slash for 80, goes to 220, and that will be the second game for Sammy.
Well, Sammy's still taking his time. I'm not sure if he realized he won already.
I'm pretty sure my maths is right on this. 140 plus the 80, 220 is more than 210.
Well, my world, it's a knockout. Not sure about Sammy's world here.
Oh my goodness.
Tito's thinking, screw up, screw up, screw up.
Don't bother announcing an attack. You don't need to announce an attack. Let's all
Exactly.
go be friends.
Just be friends. I mean, we can all be friends. What is he doing?
Not 100% sure here because I'm 90% sure he's just going to attack and win the game here, and then we're going to go on to a draw with each player winning one game, which seems fair to me.
Tito's not giving away anything. He doesn't want to give him a face like, hey, you've won already. Maybe he doesn't realize. Maybe he doesn't know what's going on. Or maybe Sammy is testing out his deck. In good spirits.
See, when players see something like this, I start to doubt myself. But I'm looking at the prize cam. There's 2 prizes remaining. We all know Greninja can do 80 damage. We know that Mega Gardevoir's got 140 on and 210 HP. So I'm fairly confident in my assertion that Sammy can just attack and win the game here.
What is happening? This is this is a tough situation. What is he doing?
Oh, could it be that he needs a basic energy on the Greninja? Well, he's got the basic energy anyway, so it's a moot point.
I'm not sure what happens. He announces the attack, and that's a knockout.
And he gets a knockout.
Wait, no, that's a knockout. Yeah, let's do the math all together. It's 140 plus 80, that's 220. What just happened? Judges being called.
Well, we've got 140 on there at the moment, and
It should be a knockout.
it should be a knockout, unless, of course, there's something that went wrong earlier in the game that we've missed. Moonlight Slash reads, you may return a water energy to your hand. If you do, this attack does 20 more damage. And when it's attached, a splash energy counts as a water energy, so he could use that as well. But it doesn't matter. We see the handshake there, 1 game each, and if ever a game deserved to end in a draw, I think that deserved to end in a draw. That seemed pretty good to me.
There was some confusion, and you can see the relief on Sammy's face. He didn't know that he had it until the very last second when the table judge announced, yep, that Mega Gardevoir is knocked out. And, well, even Tito was a little bit confused by the situation and by the uncertainty in Sammy's face. He didn't know what's going on, but we can tell you, it is a tie.
And it's easy to doubt yourself in those situations. It's easy to be sitting there thinking, oh, it's my last turn of the game, and I'm pretty sure this is a KO, but if it's not a KO, I'm going to lose the series. And then it's very easy to kind of start second-guessing yourself there. But I think that was a deserved tie. What we had was 2 very good players playing 2 slow decks, and we had the Fairy deck, which won by piling on energy and getting big KOs. We had the Greninja deck that won by setting up lots of Greninjas and doing multiple giant water shurikens plus attacks. And you know what? In game 1, we saw Tito's deck do what Tito's deck does. And in game 2, we saw Sammy's deck do what Sammy's deck does. And so it seems pretty sensible there that we end up with a draw.